housing project in Chicago. The story we've been talking about is The Last Tower, the decline and fall of public housing. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Libby. Really enjoyed it.
That's all for Washington Journal today. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back at 7 o'clock Eastern Time tomorrow. We now go to the floor of the House of Representatives.
To 1 hour, and each member other than the majority and minority leaders and the minority whip limited to 5 minutes each. But in no event shall debate continue beyond 11:50 a.m. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Vermont, Mr. Welch, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, right now, families across this country are sitting around their kitchen tables trying to figure out how they can send their kids to college. They're talking about how to finance a college education when the cost of that is rising faster than the cost of health care. Parents are making some very difficult decisions. Should we refinance our homes and dwindle our retirement? How much money can we borrow? How much can we ask our kids to borrow in order to put this financial package together? And for the first time, many of these parents are considering the unthinkable. Maybe they can't afford to send their kids to college. Meanwhile, in 52 days, if Congress does not act, a very bad situation will get worse. On July 1st, the interest rates on the Stafford student loans will double from 3.4 to 6.8%. Vermont students, American students and parents need action from Congress and need it now. Over the past few weeks, I've been asking Vermonters to share their real-world stories, and I'd like to tell a few. Katie from West Glover graduated with $36,000 in student loan debt. And it's a tough economy. She's had a hard time finding a job, so she took an internship so she can keep advancing her career. She works 5 to 6 days a week, making $25 a day. She's essentially providing well-educated, cheap labor, but she doesn't have a choice. She doesn't regret her decision to go to school, but she's getting extremely apprehensive about her ability to get this financial albatross off her back. Sue from Newport has $125,000 in debt. She also has some medical problems which limit the kind of work that she can do, but she does work and has a full-time job. But student loan payments are $600 a month, making it very difficult for her to pay her other bills, and she has no savings and no retirement. Peter, a parent from Calais, Vermont, he always believed that he could send his son to college. Now he's not sure that he can. His son has done his part, graduating from high school with honors, and he's been accepted to a number of very good institutions. But with tuition costs at those schools ranging from $30,000 to $56,000 a year, Peter from Calais is just not sure that their family is going to be able to make this work out. Julie from Huntington, Vermont, she grew up in a single-parent home, living below the poverty line. But she was told that if she worked hard in school, studied, she could achieve a great future. She did her part. She also was taught, by the way, that she should avoid debt at all costs. But she is pursuing college, but working 3 jobs while she's going to school full-time, and she's still piling up debt. She was taught to believe that if she worked hard and applied herself, she could achieve great things. Now working 3 jobs, piling up debt, is there a way out, is a question she's asking. Mr. Speaker, this is more than about extending the low interest on the Stafford loans. It's really about whether we're going to have a pathway for people trying to climb into the middle class to get there and for people in the middle class to stay there. How much more burden can we impose on folks who want a future for their families, for their kids? It is absolutely unconscionable in this world that we're in to double student interest rates from 3.4 to 6.8%. It is time for Congress to stand up for the middle class, for those folks from Vermont and around the country who are trying to do the best for themselves and for their country. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Connolly, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, climate deniers have buried their heads so deep in the sand they can't hear the Secretary of Defense warning us about the risk of climate change. Last week, Secretary Panetta gave a speech about the impact of climate change on national security. He said, quote, "The area of climate change has a dramatic impact on national security. Rising sea levels, severe droughts, the melting of the polar caps, and devastating natural disasters all raise demand for humanitarian assistance and disaster relief," and he might have added, "and threaten military bases, especially naval bases, all around the world." Americans are experiencing that severe weather already, including record-breaking droughts in the South and Southwest and unprecedented tornadic activity in the South and the Midwest. Severe weather manifestations of climate change have a direct impact on our armed services and national security. Secretary Panetta focused on the geopolitical risks of increased flooding, drought, famine, and hurricanes. These troubling events create new demands for humanitarian intervention, but can also destabilize political regimes and enable the rise of extreme elements. Congress may be fiddling while Texas and wildfire-prone regions of the Mountain West burn, but the armed services are responding aggressively to the threat of climate change. The Navy is leading the effort to boost production of biofuels and to protect the military and taxpayers against rising oil prices. The Department of Defense consumes some 350,000 barrels of oil every day. Each $10 increase in a barrel of oil costs our Department of Defense and the taxpayers $1.3 billion every year. By creating a supply of biofuels, the Navy is protecting taxpayer interests from volatile oil prices while reducing greenhouse gas pollution associated with fossil fuels. The Navy also is reducing its own dependence on Middle Eastern oil, since it makes no sense for DOD to be providing business to governments that support terrorism. The Army and the Air Force have also made groundbreaking investments in renewable energy and energy efficiency, reducing global warming pollution while strengthening our national security posture. At Fort Detrick, for example, and other installations, the Army is deploying energy-efficient retrofits and renewable energy generation to achieve net zero energy consumption, meaning that the bases produce as much energy as they consume. These efforts reduce global warming pollution and protect critical facilities from a cyber attack on the grid. The Army has implemented numerous energy-saving performance contracts at other bases, including in my district at Fort Belvoir, to reduce energy consumption and associated greenhouse gas pollution by reducing the $24.5 billion every year the federal agencies spend on electricity consumption. These efforts protect taxpayers. In today's fiscal climate, the Secretary of Defense is aware that the federal government needs to make better use of limited resources. He recognizes that investing in clean energy will reduce the Department of Defense's oil dependence and lower its fuel costs to free up resources for other priorities and to reduce the burden on taxpayers. I'm surprised by the resistance of a few members who wrap themselves in the mantle of fiscal responsibility even while opposing the Defense Department's efforts to save money on energy costs. The DOD's success in this area actually is a model for other agencies to follow. There used to be bipartisan consensus here, and we should address the threats posed by climate change. John Warner, who served as the Secretary of the Navy in a Republican administration before serving as the Republican senator from my home state of Virginia for 30 years, introduced the first bill to address global warming, which came to the Senate floor. Since his retirement in 2008, he's been a leading advocate for reductions in global warming pollution in order to improve our national security. Sadly, the House Republican leadership would take America in the opposite direction by blocking Clean Air Act enforcement of carbon pollution limits and by reversing energy efficiency standards for lights and appliances. As the impacts of climate change become more apparent with each passing season, we should heed Secretary Panetta's warning and take action to control the pollution which endangers our warfighters abroad while it threatens communities here at home. I ask that the May 4th article in The Hill by Carlo Munoz on the subject be entered into the record, and I yield back.
Without objection. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from American Samoa, Mr. Falamavinga, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the full text of my statement be made part of the record.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today with deep sympathy to offer my condolences to the family and friends of a beloved son, father, brother, uncle, leader, and as a member of the extended family, an NFL great and a son of American Samoa, Junior Seau, whose life ended tragically on the morning of May 2nd, 2012, in Oceanside, California. It is a very sad time for not only the national sports world, but also for our Polynesian community. We have lost a Samoan brother who was an icon in football and a pioneer for many of our Polynesian sons who are in the National Football League. A beautiful life has come to a tragic end, yet we remember Junior as the young man full of life, the charismatic leader able to light up any room, a devoted son and father, and community leader. We remember the strength of this unique individual, a true Samoan warrior. Junior was born the Tiaina Pauls Seau Jr. on January 19, 1969 in San Diego, California. The American Samoan parents, Mr. Tiaina Seau of the village of Aunuu and Luisa Maunga Seau of the village of Awa. After Junior was born, the family returned to American Samoa, where Junior grew up for several years before returning to San Diego area. Junior attended Oceanside High School, where he lettered in football, basketball, as well as track and field for the Oceanside Pirates. In football, he was a starter at linebacker and tight end and received numerous awards for his achievements as a student athlete. In 1987, the year he graduated, Parade magazine selected Seau to its high school All-American team. He was also named California Interscholastic Federation San Diego Section Defensive Player of the Year, All-North County Avocado League Offensive Player of the Year, as well as being named to California's All-Academic Team with a 3.6 grade point average. After graduating high school, Seau played for the University of Southern California Trojans from 1987 to 1990, and in 2009, later was inducted into the USC Hall of Fame. In 1990, the 1990 NFL Draft, Junior was drafted in the first round of the 5th overall pick with the San Diego Chargers. Seau immediately became the heart and soul of the Chargers defense, earning the nickname the Tasmanian Devil for his passion and explosive athletic skills on the field. In the locker room and on the field, Seau had an innate ability to motivate his teammates. He was named NFL's Defensive Player of the Year in 1998 and 1999, and was voted the Chargers' most inspirational player in 1987 and 2002. Junior played in 12 consecutive Pro Bowls from 1991 to 2002, the most for any player in the history of the Chargers, and tied for the third longest streak ever in the NFL. He was also selected All-Pro 6 times in his career, and he led the Chargers to their first ever Super Bowl appearance in 1995. After 13 years in San Diego, Junior played 3 years for the Miami Dolphins, where he received the Miami Dolphins Don Shula Leadership Award for 2 consecutive years. After only 1 day of retirement in 2006, he answered the call by the New England Patriots and became defensive co-captain during the Patriots' 18-0 season that took the team to the Super Bowl in 2008. Junior finally retired in 2010, being played 20 seasons in the NFL and finishing with a career of 1,849 tackles, 56.5 sacks, 18 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, and 21 pass deflections. Junior Seau is widely acknowledged as one of the best linebackers in NFL history, but his passion and success in football was paralleled in his community involvement and work off the field. In 1992, Junior established the Junior Seau Foundation, giving San Diego area youth ongoing support for programs that require them to face life's challenges with enthusiasm, with hope, and dignity. Since its inception, the foundation has distributed nearly $4 million to organizations providing services to children and young adults, including over $800,000 in scholarships to the Scholars for Excellence program and over $330,000 to junior shops with the JOC programs, which provides for underprivileged youth to shop alongside a professional college athlete for Christmas gifts for their families. In April 2007, the Wall Street Journal ranked Junior Seau's foundation as the 13th largest professional athlete foundation based on assets. Junior, as much as he was an outstanding football player, Junior will also be remembered as a humanitarian and supporter for those who needed help the most, and a dear friend and a motivational figure. He was a charismatic leader who could not walk into a room without having the effect of those around him. He was loved by everyone who knew him, and his magnetism both on and off the field impacted fans nationwide and any individual he contacted. When you speak of Samoans in the NFL, Mr. Speaker, Junior Seau was one of the first names that come to mind. Junior was an ambassador of Asian and Pacific Americans, and through his success, he was able to broaden the public's understanding and appreciation of our Polynesian people. He has been...
Time is expired.
Mr. Speaker, Manuel Malanga Jr., and I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Miller, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, last year I introduced the Keeping All Students Safe Act to protect children from abusive seclusion and restraint practices in school. 2 years ago, this legislation passed the House with bipartisan support. Unfortunately, it never became law. The incidents of students being abused or inappropriately restrained while in school continue to occur. We cannot sit idly by. Congress must step up to the plate and protect our nation's children. In recent months, we've been hearing more disturbing stories of students being dangerously restrained by teachers and staff while in school. In several of these cases, students have suffered serious injury or even died as a result of their injuries. In December, in Kentucky, 9-year-old Christopher Baker, who has autism, was stuffed into a duffel bag in a school as punishment. In Connecticut, children are afraid to go to school because they've heard other students screaming in small, windowless rooms. The students in these elementary schools refer to these rooms as scream rooms. In Texas, 10-year-old Lucas Hines, who suffers from seizures, dyslexia, and ADHD, was put in a chokehold while riding home on a Texas school bus. For 4 minutes, the school supervisor refused to release him in the care of his mother, instead kept him in the dangerous chokehold. And on April 18th, at the Leak and Watch School in New York, 16-year-old Corey Foster was restrained by school staff who were trying to remove him from the basketball court. Witnesses have reported that several staff members piled on top of him. Corey told the staff he could not breathe. Tragically, while he was restrained, he went into cardiac arrest and died. Corey's story is far too similar to a story I learned several years ago. That was the story of Cedric, a 14-year-old in Texas. Cedric was restrained face down with his teacher sitting on top of him. He yelled out that he couldn't breathe. Minutes later, Cedric died on the floor of his classroom. Tragedies like Corey's and Cedric's need to stop. In March, the Department of Education released nationwide data showing that the tens of thousands of children are subject to restraint and seclusion in school each year. This map shows that 31 states have had reports of abusive incidents since the last time that we tried to enact the Keeping All Students Safe Act. No corner of the country is immune from abuse. It is widespread and it has gone on far too long. This map shows that we need a nationally driven reform because where states haven't acted, students are still subject to the worst practices in these educational settings. According to the report released last month, only 30 states have any meaningful protection for the use of seclusion and restraint in schools. Only 18 states prohibit restraint that restricts breathing. Only 16 states limit the use of restraint to emergencies involving immediate risk or harm. Only 16 states ban the use of mechanical restraints. And only 24 states have any requirement that parents be notified that their child was restrained or secluded in school. In fact, children can go to school day after day, be restrained, be secluded, be locked in dark rooms, kept in those rooms where they urinate on themselves, and their parents are never notified. Where is it the parents are secluded from the information about their students? Where is that a matter of good public policy? The child shouldn't depend upon, and their safety should not depend upon what state they live in. The federal government, this Congress, needs to set minimum standards and model standards. We have the federal laws in place to prevent seclusion, restraint, and abuses that are happening in hospitals and other health facilities. But children do not have any federal protection against these potentially dangerous and torturous practices when they're in school. Schools are supposed to be a safe place, a place for children to learn, a place for children to socialize. But parents should never have to worry about the safety of their children when they're at school. No child should be forced to suffer abuse, neglect, and injury, or even death while they're trying to learn. The Keeping All Students Safe Act would set minimum safety standards for the use of restraint and seclusion in schools and provide training and support for school personnel to reduce the use of seclusion and restraint. It makes it illegal to strap children to chairs, to put children in duffel bags, or restrict their breathing. Seclusion and restraint practices should only be used in emergency situations by trained staff and should end as soon as the emergency has passed. This legislation makes it clear that there is no room for torture and abuse in America's schools. News reports showing children being tied up with duct tape, sat on by staff, locked in rooms for hours at a time is unacceptable. Our children deserve better. This legislation won't bring back Corey or Cedric, but it can prevent future abuses from occurring. I've called upon the chairman of the Committee of Education and Workforce to mark up this important legislation so we can move forward on passing the critical legislation into law. Our children deserve nothing less, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Kelly, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, this week we're very busy in the House, and last night we didn't get out to well beyond midnight. But there's also something else that's happening this week that's very important to not only this body, but the whole nation, and that's Mother's Day. The father of our nation, George Washington, said of his mother, "All I am, I owe to my mother. I attribute all my success in life to the moral, intellectual, and physical education I received from her. The role a mother plays in her child's life is unlike anything else. She's the life giver, the caregiver, and the source of strength and guidance throughout her children's life. She wipes away the tears, she cleans the scrapes, and heals the hurts we all experience, not just through our childhood, but beyond. We owe everything to our moms, and they deserve the recognition and respect they've rightly earned. My mother raised my brothers and sisters and me with a level of tenderness shown by no other. She taught us the virtues of hard work, humility, and selflessness by living each of those virtues herself. My mom is no longer with me, but this weekend I will celebrate her and remember and honor the legacy she and every mother leaves behind. Our nation must always value the work that mothers do and their incalculable contribution to our society. If we ever fail to recognize the work both inside and outside the home, then we begin to lose sight of the strength of our nation. Without our moms, we would fail to realize the promise within each of us, for they are our greatest supporters. They are central to our lives and vital to our success. Happy Mother's Day to every mother in America. We thank you and we honor you for your invaluable service and your endless love and sacrifice. Thank you, and I yield back my time.
The chair recognizes the gentlelady from Oregon, Mrs. Bonamici, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to congratulate Oregon's Lincoln High School on winning the 2012 National Finals of the We the People competition. These students worked diligently all year to achieve this honor, demonstrating outstanding teamwork and an impressive understanding of our country's Constitution. We the People, the Citizen and the Constitution, is a civic education curriculum in which students learn about our country and government while preparing for a mock congressional hearing. During the hearing, students are challenged to demonstrate their critical thinking skills, knowledge of current events, ability to work as a team, and understanding of the Constitution and its origins. After winning Oregon State's competition, the Lincoln High team traveled to Washington, D.C. to compete in the national finals. After 3 days of competition against classes representing 47 states, Washington, D.C., and the Northern Mariana Islands, Lincoln High School was declared the winner. To the students of Lincoln High School, our future leaders, Your hard work and dedication has not only brought you this award, it's made you outstanding citizens and models for your peers. Congratulations to the entire winning class. Avery Bellado, Catherine Barton, Marty Berger, Hallie Blashfield, Ryan Bloom, Danny Brillhart, John Carey, Julian Dan, Julia Eckelman, Michael Field, Natina Gilbert, Nikhil Goyle, Kendra Hong, Robin J. Aswell, Katie Kelly, Sierra Killian, John Kim, Emma Lane, Duncan McCackern, William Mao, Alnita Martini, Evan Newhausen, Sarah Newman, Vicki New, Sammy Purnell, Justin Richter, Beckett Ruida, Emma Simmons, Sage Smiley, Nita Sridharan, Ari Stern, Mara Strauss, Molly Walls, Carolyn Wheatley, Ajaya Woods, and Cole Zollinger. Thank you to the Classroom Law Project for organizing the program in Oregon and for all you do to teach students about democracy. And last but certainly not least, I congratulate Tim Swinehart, the student's teacher, whose leadership was instrumental to Lincoln High School's success, as well as their coaches, Steve Griffith, Jason Tromley, Jeff Edmondson, Christy Splitt, Jennifer Hill, Benno Glasser, Jonathan Pulvers, and Allison Brody. Great work, Lincoln High School. Congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from Ohio, Mrs. Schmidt, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to address the audience for 5 minutes.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in honor and in memory of a very dear friend of mine and a very dear friend of Brown County, County Commissioner Rick Egan. Rick's passion for community service spanned his entire life. He was a member of the Ripley Fire Department for almost 30 years. He served 14 years in local law enforcement. He was also a former council member and vice mayor of Ripley, Ohio. But Rick didn't stop there. He wanted to do more. He wanted to be county commissioner because he felt he could lead the county forward. And so he ran for commissioner and lost. He ran again and lost. They say the third time's a charm, and Rick decided to test that water. And so in 2010, he threw his hat in the ring. Unfortunately, very early on, he was involved in a very tragic automobile accident, one that nearly took his life. It took his leg, it took his ability to breathe, and he had a tracheotomy until a few weeks ago. He was in the hospital for nearly a year. He came out that August, campaigned, and miraculously won the election. His dream came true, and he began to serve his community in another way. He loved his community, he loved his country, and he loved his family. He fought every day to make the world a better place. And a few weeks ago, the doctors believed they could change his course and take the trach out and allow him to breathe normally again. And they did. But complications ensued, and we lost Rick this week. I am so sad for our community to have lost such a dynamic and wonderful individual. Public servants like Rick are hard to come by. But I'm even saddened more by the fact that his wonderful wife, Margaret, and his children, Douglas and Tiffany, will no longer be able to live with that remarkable man, no longer be able to love him and hug him. And so I ask this body to remember those like Rick Egan who put their lives before themselves, work hard to make our country a better place to live, work, and raise a family. And I ask that the Lord allow Commissioner Rick Egan to be in his hands, and may my dear friend and my communities rest in peace. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Quigley, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, last week the ATF announced the results of the first 8 months of its Multiple Sales Reporting Program, or MSR, for semi-automatic rifles. The numbers prove the MSR is already an invaluable tool in fighting gun trafficking along the southwest border. There were more than 3,000 reports accounting for the purchase of 7,300 rifles between Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. These reports resulted in more than 120 criminal investigations and subsequently 25 cases involving 100 defendants have been recommended for prosecution. The ATF also reported a decline in large volume rifle purchases, indicating that traffickers are altering their criminal activity due to the new reporting requirement. The MSR program was created to counteract the dangerous trafficking of guns along our border with Mexico. These guns fuel the cartel's war in Mexico, destabilizing our southern neighbor and third largest trading partner. According to the ATF data, 70% of the firearms recovered and traced from drug cartel crimes in Mexico originated in the United States. So in light of the positive impact the MSR has had, what is the House voting to do this week? That's right, repeal the measure. A policy writer in the Commerce, Justice, and Science 2013 Appropriations Bill would cut all funding for reporting the sale of multiple semi-automatic rifles. Yes, this House will vote to block funding that is successfully removing semi-automatic rifles from the underground gun trade. These are the guns that endanger Americans along the border and fuel an all-out war in a neighboring country. Ending the MSR requirement is not about protecting anyone's rights. Reporting the sale of multiple semi-automatic rifles does not infringe on Second Amendment rights. In fact, a similar multiple sales reporting requirement has been in place for handguns for over 20 years. The necessary paperwork takes gun dealers 12 minutes to complete, but can give law enforcement crucial intelligence on straw-purchased rifles. A George Bush-appointed federal judge upheld the MSR requirement, finding it did not disturb the balance between regulation and a gun owner's right to privacy. So the gun lobby has now turned to cutting its funding, because why allow programs successfully fighting gun trafficking to continue undisturbed? This has become an all-too-familiar event for the ATF, which has operated under temporary leadership since 2006 due to blocked confirmation in the Senate. But it's beyond just as administration. According to the Washington Post, in 2010, the ATF had the same number of agents it had in 1970, while the FBI has grown by 50% and the DEA by 233%. Gun ownership records are kept on paper because the NRA has successfully lobbied against funding computerized records. With record keeping from the 50s and funding from the 70s, it's no wonder law enforcement struggles in 2012. So maybe it's not surprising the MSR program would encounter such heated opposition. An effective investigative tool for law enforcement with only a negligible effect on gun dealers? That would be evidence of regulatory solutions that can work for everyone, the dealers, the buyers, and most importantly, the public. And that's exactly what the gun lobby doesn't want. If common sense solutions like multiple sales reporting can stand, what's next? Requiring background checks for sales at gun shows, which 69% of NRA members support? Denying people on the terrorist watch list the right to buy a gun? To the gun lobby, there's nothing scarier than common sense winning out. So this week, let's scare them. Let's win one for common sense. Let's keep reporting the sale of multiple semi-automatic rifles like we do with handguns. Let's allow the ATF to continue making progress against dangerous gun trafficking on our southwest border. Let's make the choice that's best for law enforcement, our security, and for common sense. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from California, Ms. Woolsey, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, tomorrow this body will vote on a Republican budget bill that is nothing short of reprehensible. Once again, my friends on the other side of the aisle are insisting that the poor and the working class families continue to suffer and struggle because, heaven forbid, we should ask the Department of Defense to do its share to meet our fiscal challenges. You can't walk into this chamber, Mr. Speaker, without hearing a self-serving and self-righteous lecture from a member of the majority about fiscal responsibility. But when they say, let's cut spending, what they really mean is let's shred the safety net. So their bill puts a giant bullseye on the programs that struggling families need to keep their heads above water, especially in this tough economy. Under their bill, fewer women will get breast cancer screenings. Fewer poor children will get meals at school or access to health care. And 1.7 million fewer seniors will get Meals on Wheels and other home-based services. They are willing to cut Medicaid, child abuse prevention, and consumer financial protection, and they want to push 1.8 million people off the food stamp program, a program, by the way, that my family needed to survive when I was a single working mom more than 40 years ago. I don't know what we'd have done without food stamps. But I guess the part of the federal government that's the most bloated, the well-fed bureaucracy, continues to support the majority lavishly. That's right, the Pentagon, the military-industrial complex. Even though the sequester is supposed to apply across the board, the majority wants to exempt defense. They want to make domestic programs absorb all the cuts. That's the way they do business. They pinch pennies on the very real human needs of the American people. They nickel and dime hard-working families who deserve a fair shot and need a hand up. For 10.5 years, Mr. Speaker, we've been at war. And between Iraq and Afghanistan, the American people are out $1.3 trillion. That's trillion with a T, Mr. Speaker. $1.3 trillion wasted on a policy that is killing our people, hurting our national security, and undermining our standing in the world. For pennies on the dollar, we could replace permanent warfare with a smart security platform that will keep our country safe by focusing on development, diplomacy, and investment in humanitarian needs in the developing world. And we'd have plenty left over, plenty, to shore up the safety net, fund anti-poverty programs, and restore the American dream. If we're serious about reducing the deficit, then progressives are willing to talk. But there has to be a shared sacrifice. There has to be a balanced approach. We won't take it out on our most vulnerable people, not when we're waging a failed war that is our biggest ticket item, not when we continue to throw billions of dollars at Cold War aircraft and weapons systems that are serving absolutely no purpose, not when we continue to maintain a nuclear arsenal that's enough to destroy civilization several times over. Targeting social services while giving defense and war spending a free pass is not fiscal responsibility. It's ideological warfare. Let's get our priorities straight. It's time to cut defense spending, Mr. Speaker. It's time to bring our troops home, and it's time to reinvest in the American people. And the time is now. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from Alabama, Ms. Seau, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of America's postal workers, small businesses, senior citizens, and rural communities across this nation. I stand before this chamber gravely concerned about the future of the United States Postal Service and the impact of its fiscal crisis on communities across America. The Post Office is an iconic American institution woven into the fabric of our everyday lives. For more than 200 years, the men and women of the United States Postal Services have fulfilled their mission to deliver universal, trusted, timely, and effective service to the American people. Americans depend on the Postal Service rain or shine, 6 days a week, from Montana to Alabama, from New York to California, from Florida to Alaska. Whether it's overnight, flat rate, first class, the United States Postal Service delivers. Today, the Postal Service is teetering on the brink of insolvency, and its future remains uncertain. Significant declines in first-class mail volume, evolving consumer trends, and the increase in expenditures and operating costs mean that the Postal Service must reduce its footprint, or reorganize and take drastic measures to remain viable and competitive in the 21st century. On May 15th, the moratorium on postal closure will be lifted, and thousands of post offices and mail processing facilities across this country will be targeted for closure. If Congress does not act, the lifting of this moratorium could mark the beginning of a slow and painful process of downsizing, layoffs, and reorganization for the U.S. Postal Service. We must take swift and decisive action to create a more efficient business model for the United States Postal Service. I believe that an investment in the future of the Postal Service is an investment in our economy, in small businesses, and in the American people. It requires our prompt attention and deserves our immediate action. So much is at stake in this debate over postal reform. We know that reform is necessary given the current market reality, but we cannot reform the Postal Service on the backs of the rural and underserved communities throughout this country. For so many of these communities, the post office is the meeting place, the place where you send your packages and receive your medicine. The lifting of the moratorium on May 15th is an issue of utmost concern to the constituents that I represent in Alabama. In towns like Oak Hill, Magnolia, and Sawyerville, Alabama, the local post office is much more than a place for sending and receiving mail. Post offices are the vital lifelines for these rural, isolated communities. These lifelines must be preserved and protected. I am sure that we as Americans must make sure that all Americans have access to affordable, reliable, and efficient postal service. Consider the ripple effect and the economic impact of the closure of a post office, how that may affect an entire community. Imagine small-town America, where the local post office lies at the heart of the community, is an integral part of its history and its identity. This is the case in many of the communities across my district. The fact is that the closure of the Postal Service will devastate small towns like Gainesville, Coy, and Myrtlewood, Alabama, and so many across this nation. The American people cannot afford to reduce services, lower costs, on the backs of these underserved communities. Yes, we must all buckle up. We must all decide to show fiscal responsibility. And in these market conditions, we know that reductions are necessary. But surely we can do something to make sure that these reductions are not on the backs of the rural, underserved, and underprivileged communities. Many of the postal services that are being offered are irreplaceable in these communities. For seniors who can't leave their homes, mail carriers deliver life-saving medication. And for small businesses, postal services like bulk and flat-rate mail enable them to grow and create jobs. The United States Postal Service provides Americans with universal and invaluable service. And I urge my colleagues to come together and pass a bipartisan, comprehensive plan for the future of the United States Postal Service that will not disproportionately affect underserved communities. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlelady yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Moran, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to voice my strong objection to an unwise and dangerous policy provision that is included in the Commerce, Justice, Science Appropriations Bill on the floor today. It would undermine the ability of federal law enforcement to investigate and curb gun trafficking along the southwest border. In August of last year, the ATF began a program to require licensed gun dealers in the 4 most dangerous border states to report when an individual buys multiple assault rifles within 5 business days just as all dealers have reported multiple handgun sales for over 20 years. The current rule is narrowly tailored to generate useful intelligence on illegal gun trafficking by Mexican drug cartels. According to ATF data, 70% of firearms recovered and traced in drug cartel crimes in Mexico originated from the United States. We know that semi-automatic assault rifles sold by U.S. dealers near the border fuel Mexican cartel violence, violence that has killed more than 47,000 people in Mexico, including thousands of police and military personnel. This rule is working. In just the past 9 months, ATF opened more than 120 criminal investigations based on multiple assault rifle sales reports. And this action is constitutional. The rule is constitutional. The authority to operate such a program has been upheld by federal courts, so there's no question about the legal authority. But this bill that we will vote on today, at the behest of the NRA and other gun groups, would block funding for this vital law enforcement program. Unfortunately, this is only the latest in a long list of irresponsible actions this Congress has taken on gun policy, such as loaded firearms are now permitted in national parks. The D.C. voting rights bill that enjoyed bipartisan support was scuttled by requiring restrictions on the D.C. City Council regarding the type of gun safety laws that they could enact if they wanted their right for a vote. Restrictions blocking state and local law enforcement access to important crime gun trace data were made permanent. And just last year, the House passed legislation to override the concealed carry requirements of individual states, establishing a lowest common denominator federal standard. Despite all of these actions to weaken gun laws, judging by the outlandish statements from the NRA, you would think that the Second Amendment was under constant bombardment. Wayne LaPierre, vice president of the NRA, said last year that the claim that the Obama administration has done virtually nothing to restrict the rights of gun owners, and I quote, he said, is a big, fat, stinking lie. That's his quote. He went further to claim that the president's lack of action is all part of a massive Obama conspiracy to deceive voters and hide his true intentions to destroy the Second Amendment in our country. Again, another LaPierre quote. Actions are supposed to speak louder than words, but apparently for some people, crazy conspiracy fantasies speak loudest of all. Instead of weakening gun laws further, we should be passing common sense measures that are supported by the vast majority of Americans. In fact, according to a poll conducted by Republican pollster Frank Luntz, 82% of NRA members and 86% of non-NRA gun owners support prohibiting suspected terrorists from purchasing guns. 69% of NRA members and 85% of non-NRA gun owners support background checks for all gun sales at gun shows, and yet the NRA opposes it and gets this Congress to do so as well. There are bills introduced in Congress right now to address these two issues, the Denying Firearms and Explosives to Dangerous Terrorists Acts and the Fixed Gun Checks Act. Neither one has received so much as a subcommittee hearing in this Congress. Instead, we're debating a bill that includes a provision that would remove a modest yet valuable tool for federal law enforcement to stop the illegal smuggling of firearms. Where are our priorities? I do want to thank Chairman Wolf and Ranking Member Fatah for including $12 million in the CGS bill for Nick's amendments. It's a $7 million increase over last year. That's progress. But in fact, it's a program that assists states in the establishment and upgrade of information, such as mental health records entered into databases that are used to determine eligibility for firearms purchase. If we had that, perhaps our colleague would not have been shot. And it's a long time since we should have done this, but increased funding is a step in the right direction. But the inclusion of the ATF provision is not. It'll only serve to undermine federal law enforcement's ability to stop illegal gun trafficking. Congress needs to stop weakening gun policy to serve the narrow interests of the gun lobby and start enacting laws to protect the safety of the American public. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until noon today.
When members return